Prime fantasy football draft season for 2023 is fast approaching. It's almost here, and the real sickos are already drafting. If that's you, and considering you're watching this in June, it probably is, then you can take advantage of these 3 wide receivers who are massive values at their current ADP. Exploit the market by drafting them at their current cost before it corrects. Let's get started. The first wide receiver value for 2023 fantasy football drafts is Chris Godwin. Tom Brady is out and Baker Mayfield is in. That has created a doomsday narrative around Chris Godwin's fantasy football outlook. And sure, one is the greatest quarterback to ever walk the earth, and the other has had 3 teams decide they don't want him in the last 12 months. But the Chris Godwin fear has swung too far. Baker Mayfield actually played well down the stretch with the Rams last year, which gives us a little bit of hope that he can command a quality offense. Now he gets a fresh start with the best wide receiver duo he's ever played with, and an offensive line that is healed after an injury-riddled 2022 campaign. While there is optimism that Mayfield can play well in this environment, he certainly has his limitations to his game that cannot be argued against, like his struggles to consistently push the ball out to the boundaries. Instead, he tends to lean on guys that are operating in between the numbers. That plays right into Chris Godwin's hands, as he took 57.5% of the snaps last year from the slot. Back in his Browns days, Baker Mayfield's tendency to pepper slot receivers propelled Jarvis Landry to one of the best seasons of his career. And we know Godwin is a much more dynamic player than Jarvis Landry ever was, especially now that he has a full season under his belt since that torn ACL. Remember, Godwin suffered his knee injury late in the 2021 season. We didn't even think he would be ready to start in 2022, and while he was on the field in week 1, it was really clear that the team should not have put him out there, and they should have given him more time to recover. But even while missing multiple games and not looking like himself until at least mid-season, Chris Godwin managed to set career highs in targets with 142 and receptions with 104. He was difficult to defend with a top 20 route win rate and a 14th ranked 55.6% contested catch success rate. Both of those per playerprofiler.com. Godwin continued to be one of the most dynamic threats after the catch as well, with nearly 500 yards post-reception, which ranks 6th in the NFL. And Godwin will continue to be a target hog in 2023, despite the presence of Mike Evans. We've already touched on Mayfield's struggles to consistently get the ball down the field and outside the numbers, which won't bode well for Mike Evans, as his game is focused in those areas. Even if Mayfield suddenly became Jameis Winston as a downfield passer, Evans has shown a steady decline in efficiency over the last few seasons. And without Tom Brady, he might be toast. And then beyond that, there really isn't much of a threat for target competition for Chris Godwin. Another case that these anti-Chris Godwin drafters have made against him is that without Tom Brady, this team is going to be a run-heavy offense. And to that I say, not so fast. The Buccaneers as a team, as an offense, they were average at best last year. So now that they're without Tom Brady, they're probably going to be pretty bad. And what do bad teams typically have to do to try to stay competitive and to rally these comebacks? They pass the ball. It's the Blake Bortles rule. Remember in 2016 or something, the team was terrible, but they had to pass the ball in comeback mode in the 4th quarter, and he just racked up tons of yards, tons of touchdowns. Allen Robinson had that big season. It was all because that team was terrible, and they were passing the ball at a high rate in comeback mode for the entire second half. Of course, there's no chance they come anywhere close to the more than 750 pass attempts that Tom Brady had last season, but an above-league average pass rate is more likely than not. And if you don't believe me, then take the team's own actions into account. They released Leonard Fournette at the start of free agency, and they did absolutely nothing to replace him. Their only additions at that position were Chase Edmonds, who's a pass-catching running back, and an undrafted Sean Tucker. That leaves Rachaad White clearly in the driver's seat. And what is Rachaad White best known for? His receiving skills. And you really don't think the Bucs are aware that they had the league's lowest rushing yards per game in 2022 or the lowest rushing EPA per play? They're well aware, and yet they did nothing to try to fix that because they know they're going to have to lean on the passing game again in 2023. The bottom line is Chris Godwin is a great value at his current ADP. Whatever inefficiency he might face with Baker Mayfield at quarterback is already baked into the cost and then some. He has very little target competition on an offense poised to pass the ball at a high rate with a quarterback who leans on his slot receivers. On top of that, Chris Godwin has now gone a full season and offseason after that 2021 ACL tear, so we know he will be back to full form for the duration of the 2023 campaign. Now, let's not forget, he was wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game in 2021 before the injury. He was wide receiver 15 in 2020, and in 2019, pre-Tom Brady, he was wide receiver 2. So draft Chris Godwin in the 4th round with confidence and know you just committed highway robbery. By the way, the ADP in this video are coming from Underdog Fantasy, the best platform for drafting. I'm literally drafting on Underdog every single day, whether it be a slow draft, a quick draft, a mini $3 league, or the best ball mania tournament where the winner takes home $3 million. I've also been dipping my toes into the season-long pick'em props. I love the Underdog platform, and I know you will too. So sign up now and use promo code YARDSPER to get a $100 first-time deposit match. I'll see you in a draft room. The next wide receiver value that you can take advantage of in early 2023 fantasy football drafts is Brandon Cooks. Remember, Brandon Cooks is with the Cowboys now, and that Cowboys passing offense went through CeeDee Lamb last season, which propelled his big breakout. But that wasn't exactly optimal for real-life football. It seemed like anytime CeeDee Lamb was taken away by the defense, Dak Prescott was in big trouble. I mean, his tight end was average, Michael Gallup couldn't freaking move, and there really wasn't anyone else to turn to. I mean, when Noah Brown is your next best option, you're not going anywhere. So to solve that problem, Dallas traded their 2023 5th-round pick and a 2024 6th-round pick to the Texans for Brandon Cooks. Cooks gives the Cowboys and Dak Prescott the number 2 wide receiver that they desperately needed last season. And unlike the guys that were out there last year, Cooks can separate. He can get open in all areas of the field, and he can make plays. Brandon Cooks had a 43.8% route win rate last season, and he was top 20 in win rate versus man coverage, and those are per playerprofiler.com. And he was even better the year before when he went for over 1,000 yards receiving and 90 receptions with a rookie Davis Mills at quarterback. Brandon Cooks has been one of the most consistent producers in both real life and fantasy football for the entirety of his career. He's topped 1,000 yards with every team that he's played for, and he's been the wide receiver 22 or better 7 times. With a massive quarterback upgrade and a far better team situation, Brandon Cooks is poised for another productive year. He should have no trouble finding enough volume with both Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown departing in free agency, leaving behind a combined 29.7% target share and 162 total targets. And the departure of Ezekiel Elliott will also play into Cooks' favor as the team loses its incentive to run the football. This team is built to pass, and they should be more efficient in doing so thanks to the addition of Brandon Cooks. And yet somehow Brandon Cooks is being drafted behind guys like Kadarius Toney, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, Quentin Johnston, and Gabe Davis. He's going in the same areas as Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, and Michael Thomas. What are you doing? Brandon Cooks should outproduce each and every one of those guys. So take advantage and draft him now before he starts making plays in training camp and his ADP adjusts. Before we get into our third undervalued wide receiver for 2023 fantasy football, if you're enjoying this video and you find it at all valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be pumping out content like this all summer long. And let me know in the comments, what topic should I cover next? My third wide receiver value for 2023 fantasy football is Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson was the wide receiver 22 in fantasy points per game in 2020, and then he followed that up with a wide receiver 8 season in 2021. However, he proved to be one of the biggest busts in all of fantasy football in 2022 when he was the wide receiver 39. Part of that was due to playing with a rookie quarterback on a bad team with a bad offensive line. It surely wasn't for a lack of volume. Deontay Johnson was 7th in the NFL with 147 targets. Only Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and Travis Kelce had more. But Johnson's inability to find the end zone really made it difficult to hit any sort of ceiling from a fantasy football perspective. In fact, he set the record for the most targets without a touchdown in NFL history. If we only count his receptions and receiving yards, Johnson would have been the wide receiver 20 in PPR scoring. But a stat like that feels super fluky, and regression should play in his favor. After all, he did see 18 red zone targets, which were top 10 among all wide receivers, and 14 end zone looks. The 0 touchdown thing is not going to happen again. And the good news is Johnson performed well within his own offense. He ranked 13th in the NFL with a 27% target share, and he had 49 more targets than the next Steeler, which was Pat Freiermuth, and 63 more than George Pickens. While Johnson is known for his short and intermediate focused route tree, he did rank 19th in deep targets. He was also number 2 in unrealized air yards. So after reviewing his 2022 season, we can safely chalk it up to a couple of factors: poor quarterback play, and the worst touchdown luck of all time. And it's not a surprise that any wide receiver would struggle with a rookie quarterback under center. And if you haven't seen it already, JJ Zacharyson recently did a study detailing just how much rookie quarterbacks pull down their pass catchers. And there's a non-zero chance that Kenny Pickett takes a major step forward in his second season and throws more catchable, on-target passes and operates a far more efficient offense. And there's also zero chance that Deontay Johnson goes another season without scoring a touchdown. His volume has been consistent for 3 straight seasons, so assuming that continues to hover around that 145 to 150 mark in 2023, Deontay Johnson's touchdown numbers should normalize. So similar volume plus higher efficiency plus 7 to 8 touchdowns should equal a big-time bounce-back season for Deontay Johnson. Hey, if you like that video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment on what you want me to talk about next. You can find all my stuff, my rankings, articles, podcasts, more videos like this on yardsperfantasy.com. Just download the Yards Per Fantasy app, and we thank you for your support.